Hello fellows, how you doing? In today's video I'm gonna be basically talking about self-control and my identity transformation. And what do I mean by my identity transformation? My old identity was based on dysfunction, negativity, violence, rage, anger, guilt, depression, suicidal feelings, frustration, feelings of hopelessness, feelings of worthlessness, feelings that I can't trust anyone, distrust towards myself, distrust towards other people. So recently I was going through an identity transformation and I'm starting to develop more self-control. More self-control, and it affected every area of my life. More self-control in regards to dealing with people, dealing with my emotions, having much more self-control over the things that used to bother me in the past. So self-control is quite crucial if you wanna become successful and you wanna achieve your dreams and all the things you wanna have in your life. Because think about it, it doesn't make sense if you've absolutely got no self-control and you wanna achieve big things in life. If you haven't got control and mastery over your psychology, over your thinking, over your thoughts, you're just never gonna enjoy life. And I never enjoyed life when I had no self-control. I would easily lose my temper. Let me get the camera right. I would easily lose my temper, and if someone were to disagree with me, I would just be violent, and it would just activate my pain body. And I'm gonna speak about pain body in this video also. So pain body is something that I've never spoken about, but it's quite important to know about. And I've known a great deal about the pain body over the last couple of months, and I've done some psychological research into it. I went deep into psychology and I started learning more stuff about pain body, and Eckhart Tolle is one of the main inspiration for me, who inspired me to know a better deal about self-control and the unobserved mind. And the lack of self-control comes from not observing yourself, the lack of self-observation. So when you have no self-control, that means and confirms that you're not observing yourself psychologically, you're not observing your thoughts, you're not observing yourself emotionally. I'm not being judgmental towards anyone, because I was like that myself. I didn't have self-control, and I lacked self-observation. Self-observation is what Eckhart Tolle talks about in his videos. He talks about the power of self-observation, to observe your thoughts, to observe your mind. The neurotic mind, the mind that is out of control. And you have a choice. You have a choice to have a mind which is out of control, or to have a mind which is under control. You make the choice. You decide for yourself. I've made a decision a couple of months back to start taking control over my thinking and over my behavior, and I started observing my behaviors, and I spotted all the behaviors that are quite dysfunctional, that are unconscious. So if any behavior were to be coming from a place of unconsciousness, I would spot it immediately and turn it around and create something positive out of it, which I'm gonna speak about in this video. When you are in a negative place, you've always got to think of ways to be positive and to create for yourself a positive reality, and to start changing your thinking, and to shift your psychology from being negative into a positive one, developing a psychology you're happy with, you're content with. And contentment is quite important. It's always important to feel content, but it's not good if you feel content and you're going through a bad time, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, you're going through a hard time and you're not improving yourself and developing yourself to feel content. It's important when you feel contentment, when you've got a sense of contentment and hope, and uh, oh, it happens to me occasionally. I always run out of things to say. Let me just breathe and get my words right. So you've got to improve yourself, work on yourself socially, start challenging your fears and insecurities. Then you can develop a sense of contentment, a sense of happiness, a sense of satisfaction. You can't be satisfied while you're not improving and you are lazy, sitting on your ass and doing nothing about your life, and you're not taking action, and you're not trying your best to change your unconscious behaviors and develop yourself as a person. So when you are working on all these different aspects, which are quite positive to work on, to be honest, and this has been truthful from speaking from my own experience, you start developing much more, and then you could develop a sense of satisfaction and contentment, which are crucial and which really keeps you going and keeps you improving more and more. And this is what enables you to be quite motivated. So let me get the words right. What am I gonna say? Sorry, I go blank. So I'm gonna speak of my lack of self-control. Now basically I'm gonna speak my own story and narrate my own battling with the lack of self-control, and how absolutely I've had no self-control whatsoever. So I was living a life that I wasn't happy with. I was basically living a lie, and I wasn't happy with the reality I've created years ago. It wasn't a reality I was happy with. It wasn't a life that I wanted to live. It was a lie. It was my false self. My false self created this reality that I wasn't happy with. And there is a big difference between the false self and the truthful self, the higher self. When you can you only dissolve your false self through connecting to love, connecting to a higher state of consciousness, if that makes sense. I try to use a simple language because when I say these kind of terms, a lot of people won't understand me, a lot of people, and this is not to be arrogant in any way. I'm not saying that I'm perfect and I know everything, and people don't understand these terms because they are too complicated for these people to understand. I'm not being judgmental towards anyone because I was unconscious myself years ago. So I have absolute compassion for people who are not improving and not developing and going through a hard time. I feel absolute compassion towards them. So I'm not being judgmental or hard on anyone. Let me speak. Alright. When I lacked self-control, I wasn't happy in my life, and I was depressed, and all the rest of the negative emotions I've mentioned at the start of my video, which are frustration, depression, pain, trauma, paranoia, feeling suicidal, low self-esteem, all these things are attached to lack of self-control. So when you start developing self-control, you start getting your self-esteem as tight as you could possibly get it, which is quite crucial. So it's always important to develop a proper self-esteem, and building high self-esteem means building a proper relationship with yourself. So when you work on your self-esteem and you start improving in every area of your life, you are connecting with yourself. You're connecting with the higher consciousness of the self. That's why it's been important for me, and I'm quite happy when a lot of people out there resonate with what I'm saying. And if people don't want to like it, that's fine. It's their choice. I can't force it on anyone. I can't force my teaching and what I'm saying on anyone. So if I could just manage to convince these people who really want to improve to start working harder on themselves, I would be glad to hear good news from them and to hear that they've got inspired by my teaching and what I'm saying. But if people don't want to hear about it, they think it makes no sense, then I'm not bothered. I'm absolutely not bothered. I'm completely fine with it, because I developed a proper relationship with myself. I have a good relationship with myself, and I have a good relationship with other people, and I developed myself as a person, and I worked hard, and I did whatever it took to improve myself and to change my life situation. So I was going through, when I had lacked self-control, I was developing relationships that were based on dysfunction. They were absolutely based on dysfunction. I developed relationships that were dysfunctional, relationships that I wasn't happy with, relationships that were based on people pleasing. I was afraid to lose these people. I was afraid to be abandoned by these people. I was developing relationships and friendships with. I didn't want these people to abandon me and I didn't basically want to be left out by these people, because I had a dysfunctional relationship with myself. So it's quite dysfunctional to have a fear of abandonment, which I'm gonna speak about in some of my other videos. I'm gonna make some other videos speaking about the fear of abandonment, the fear of being rejected, the fear of social confrontation. So I'm gonna speak about all these different things in some other videos. But in this video, I'm just gonna focus on self-control, which I've mentioned a lot of things about at the start of the video. So when you start developing self-control, your whole reality changes. Everything changes. Your whole life changes. Your social circles changes. You start attracting like-minded people into your life. And that was one of the most important things for me. As I'm developing myself as a person, it's always been important for me to attract into my life like-minded people, people who think the same way, people who, oh, let me just have a seat. People who think the same way, people who have the same interests, people who are working as hard of themselves as hard as I'm working on myself. Sorry. So these things were always important for me. Let me just have a seat. It's alright. So I created a beautiful reality for myself, and I inspired countless people out there to go out, take action, challenge their fears, create a beautiful reality for themselves, being the best version of myself. And this is a term that I always like to use, to be the best version of myself, of yourself, which I've always taught people, because I'm not saying to be the best version of yourself in a sense to be competitive, to compete with other people and to... You've only got to compete with yourself. That's the only person you've got to compete with, because there is no competition whatsoever. So if you're trying to compete with other people, it's a negative thing, because you're being a people pleaser and you want to prove yourself to other people. And I never enjoyed that when I did it, so I'm not being judgmental towards anyone, because I was competitive at some point of my life and I didn't enjoy living like that. So, let me get right. So, when you start developing yourself as a person, when you start working hard on yourself, you start working on all the issues you're not happy with, and you start working on dissolving them and just getting so much of a better person, you live a beautiful reality. And I can't explain in words how beautiful this reality will be to you if you just put the work in and you start developing many aspects of yourself and you connect to your higher self, to a higher state of consciousness. I can't explain to you, it's indescribable. I can't even use English words to describe how peaceful, how relaxed, how much joy you get out of life. And I'm narrating this from my own personal experience, because when I wasn't working on myself socially, wasn't challenging my social anxiety, which I've spoken about before. I've spoken enough about my social anxiety and how bad it used to be, but there are still more things I can talk about and just add. I know it's the same things, but I make sure I always create I form these same things in a different new way. So I will always make sure I do that, because it helps me selfishly, and it helps other people out there who need this kind of help. So let me walk. So I was living a bad reality years ago. I was living a reality I wasn't content and happy with, and I just felt hopeless. I didn't feel any sense of hope for the future. I didn't feel any sense of hope for a career, for a job I wanted to do, and I thought that I would never make money. And it all stemmed from my lack of self-control, because I haven't mastered self-control over my psychology. I was damaged psychologically. My psychology was absolutely dysfunctional, and I just let it be that way. I didn't work on it. I didn't decide to shift my psychology into a positive one, because I had no self-awareness. I haven't developed enough conscious awareness at the time to start realizing these unconscious behaviors in myself, and making a turning point for me to create whatever positive things I could possibly create. I haven't developed this type of demeanor, this way of thinking, this mentality. That's why I struggled to be myself around people. I struggled in my relationships. I struggled with social confrontation. So I'm just gonna speak about social confrontation. I've never spoken about it. Just disagreeing with someone. For example, if someone were to say to me, "Oh, Rami," and I'll show you how I lacked self-control at the time. If someone were to say to me, "Oh, come on, let's smoke weed, let's go and drink beer," I would agree immediately, even if my heart is saying to me that doesn't feel right and I shouldn't be doing it, and it's unethical, it's wrong, it's damaging, it's harmful. So my mind would be saying that, and I knew it deep down, but I was afraid to disagree with my friend in case I get abandoned and rejected by him. I didn't want to lose people. I was afraid of losing people, and I was people pleasing them, so I wasn't happy with doing these things, but I did it anyway, because I just was basically afraid of losing my friends. I was afraid of driving people away, letting people walk out of my life, and people completely worked all over me. People took advantage of me because I had no self-control, and when you have no self-control, people sense it. People could easily pick up on it. So especially for people who have got social intelligence, they've got enough social awareness, they will be able to spot this behavior straight away on you. So I've been recently working with lots of people who are lacking self-control, and they've got low self-esteem, and I've been just sort of counseling them and giving them some life-changing advice, and they were quite receptive towards the advice. They wanted to take the advice for granted, and they wanted to take the advice for granted, and they were willing to work on themselves hard, and that made me happy, that made me content, that made me quite satisfied. And I always feel satisfied, and it helps me selfishly when I realize how life-changing the results people get out of my videos, just watching my videos, and even giving the slightest amount of inspiration, even if it's in the slightest. I feel quite content and satisfied, no matter how slight it is. It doesn't matter. The most important thing for me is just having a good influence over people's lives, and making good changes. Sorry. So this has always been very important for me. It's been very vital, and I've always enjoyed doing that. And just speaking in front of a camera and just doing some YouTube videos is quite enjoyable for me. I get a lot of joy out of it. I feel very peaceful when I speak, and I enjoy hearing my own voice. That's not to be arrogant. I'm not saying this to be arrogant, but I enjoy every single syllable, every single letter that comes out of my mouth. And I changed people's lives just through my voice, just through speaking the truth, living the truth, narrating my own story in regards to living a happy life, a reality that I'm happy with, just through saying these things verbally, just through using my voice and to form words that in itself affected and touched people's lives, which just helps me selfishly and it makes me feel good. So I got dried up in this video and I would like to speak later. I've got more things to say. So this video is unplanned as usual. I don't write down what I want to say, but I'm just gonna listen to some of my mentors and just pick up on what they say, and I'm gonna narrate more stories and narrate more things as I do another video. So I'm gonna do a kind of continuation for this video, in which I'm gonna speak about more things, because I need to listen to what my mentors say, because I just run out of things to say now. It always happens to me. We're only human. It's quite normal to run out of things to say, to run out of words to articulate. It's not a bad thing actually, because it's quite human. It's actually unhuman to keep talking and to never run out of things to say, because it's not normal. Everyone has to be in a position where they get the chance to think and to form the right sentences and the right words to articulate in any video they want to make. And that's why I'm good. So speak to you soon. Like and subscribe. Enjoy the process.